Welcome back to Up Front. Trade was a major issue in this year's election. Donald Trump ran and won in part by promising to get better trade deals for the U.S. And last week he confirmed the U.S. will be pulling the plug on the TPP trade agreement. Today we're doing a deep dive into the topic of trade and its impact on Wisconsin. First, a little background. Last year, our state exported more than $3.2 billion worth of agricultural goods to 144 countries. The top 5 countries for Wisconsin ag exports: Canada, Mexico, China, South Korea, and Japan. So clearly, trade is good for Wisconsin farmers. But what about the rest of us? We have a panel here today to talk about it. We're joined by Mike North, President-elect of the Wisconsin Dairy Business Association, Stephanie Bloomingdale, Secretary-Treasurer of the Wisconsin AFL-CIO, and Tom Still, President of the Wisconsin Technology Council. Thanks to the three of you for being with us today. Mike, I'll begin with you. We're talking about the value of exports in the ag business. Just how important is it to the agricultural industry in the state?
It's huge. As you look at the dairy industry specifically, the dairy industry in our state is a $44 billion industry. It's 12% of our workforce. And when you talk about dairy exports, we are over $750 million in annual revenue as a result of export activity. And you talked about our trade partners, Canada and Mexico being the two biggest ones. The trade issue is a big one for us because a lot of investment has been made into new infrastructure, cheese plants and butter operations. Dairymen have put a lot of investment into their operations, and that trickles through the entire agricultural sector. New infrastructure has been added over the last few years. And as you've made that investment as a producer, you're looking for a return. Right. And the only way for good returns is if we have opportunities to sell our product. Exports has been a big growth area.
Stephanie Bloomingdale, organized labor obviously favors the idea of trade, but it's the trade deals that concern you. What concerns you specifically?
That's right. We understand that we live and die on our ability to export products around the world. We know the American labor movement understands that 95% of the world's consumers lie outside of our borders. And so what we want to see is fair trade deals. The deals that have been cut, for example, NAFTA, have not favored American workers. And they have been tilted to the side of the corporate elites and have rewarded a small group of people at the very top. When we have trade deals, they should be written with the American worker in mind. Because we can do this, and we stand ready to be the best exporters of the best products around the world. But American workers can't do that if these deals are written in such a way that they're stacked against American workers.
Tom Still, the Wisconsin Technology Council, obviously you see trade is part and parcel of what the state does or should do. How do you feel about the way it was discussed in the last election cycle?
I think it at times missed a bigger picture. You know, let's look at Wisconsin. And the total trade here is about $22.4 billion in exports out of Wisconsin in 2015. I wouldn't be surprised if the ag exports were even higher. It drives so much of what we do here. We're just a fraction in Wisconsin of the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is a fraction of what you see in the world. So we can't possibly sell everything we make inside Wisconsin or inside the country. It's going to go overseas. I think there's the discussion of free trade, fair trade, all of the other nuances in between. But with some particular agreements, North American Free Trade Agreement, which is now about 20 years old, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is just under discussion, both of those need to be looked at in their entirety, I believe. I think the TPP actually has some great provisions around labor, environment, and other pieces that would set it apart. If people are going to talk about not going ahead with the TPP, we have to talk about what replaces it, because the Chinese are ready to move in with their own agreement.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and all of you can weigh in on this. What do you want to see from the president-elect, who talked about trade a lot in this campaign? What do you want to see in terms of trade deals? And Stephanie, I'll begin with you.
Well, the American labor movement has been talking about that we need to scrap the TPP for a long time. And we have seen so many workers lose their jobs over the past decades due to trade deals that were written unfairly. And we'd like to see trade deals that put the American worker first and allow us to compete on a level playing field, because we can do that. I mean, Milwaukee is the machine shop of the world and known as such. And we have men and women that are standing ready to work and have good and decent jobs with decent benefits.
Mike North, what would you like to see from the new president, President-elect Trump?
Well, from the standpoint of agriculture, trade's been such a growth area. We don't want to stonewall the idea of having trade relationships. If you go back over the course of the last 15 years, our participation, especially in Southeast Asian markets, has grown substantially, more than double in the last 15 years to that area specifically. And that is tough for us to walk away from. TPP was something that we wanted to see go through, is something that we wanted to see continued talks in. Could it be improved? Absolutely. There were certainly some elements that I think needed some work. But bottom line is, if you look at Wisconsin specifically, dairy exports have grown 5 times in the last 7 years. That's a trend you don't want to just walk away from. You don't want to just throw that away. And so it's important to keep that ball rolling and to be looking at good deals that take you into areas where you can expand your relationships, grow your loyalties, build your brands, and bring revenue back to the state.
Do any of you have concerns that the country could move in more of a protectionist direction in terms of how we interact with the rest of the world? Tom Still?
I certainly do. I think that, again, if we're going to scrap the Trans-Pacific Partnership or rewrite NAFTA, we have to be pretty careful about what follows on, because trade covers so many sectors. We have to be really careful not to vacate spaces that others will move in. The Chinese are ready to go with their own trade agreement with, in many cases, similar nations that are part of TPP. And do you think they care about labor laws or environmental laws? I don't think so.
I'm going to give each of the two of you the remainder of this time here to address that. Do you have any concerns about perhaps the direction where we're headed? Are we, as we look inward and talk about bringing jobs back, which a lot of people would like to see jobs here, do you have any concern that puts us at a disadvantage globally? Stephanie?
Well, you talked about environmental and labor standards, and any trade deal that we create, and again, it's individuals that create these trade deals. The economy is not like the weather. We human beings create the path for an economic future for us all, and we have to have an enforceable mechanism in these trade deals, and we do not see that existing with the current TPP.
Mike North, I'll give you the final word on this. What's your thought? Are you concerned that we may be pulling back a bit from the global marketplace?
Well, absolutely. With the news that we received about TPP being pulled off the table, that's certainly a movement in a direction that we don't really want to go. As a whole, 15% of dairy is exported. Half of our soybeans are exported. And so for us to move away from trade, to take a different avenue, I go with what Tom said. Where do we go with that surplus? The fallout from that is incredibly low farm prices, a terrible farm economy, and an environment that is not conducive to rural America.
We'll have to have you back for a conversation a couple of years from now and see where we are. Tom Still from the Wisconsin Technology Council, Stephanie Bloomingdale from the AFL-CIO, I'll spit it out there, and Mike North from the Wisconsin Dairy Business Association. It's good to have you on the program. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks.
Coming up next on Up Front, should we do away with the Electoral College?